For World of Work and WorkSpan TV, I'm Ryan Johnson. I'm talking today with Kibbe of Towers Watson, and we're going to talk about the 3 C's of effective reward communication. Welcome, Kathy. So talk about the study that you've done recently that gets at the ROI of effective communication and change management.
Yeah, we're very excited this year again to do our communication and change management ROI study. Every year that we do this study, we find the same result. What we find is that organizations that report best practices in communication and change management are actually more successful financially. And so what the study tells us is what those practices are that companies that report being more effective tend to use. What we're seeing is organizations that line up around 3 C's. Clarity, the ability to be clear with the workforce in terms of what's happening. As organizations go through turbulent change, are they able to really help people understand the meaning behind that change, and how do they go about doing that? We also look at confidence. Are organizations confident in how they speak to their employees, how they equip their managers to be able to help people navigate change? We see that as an important part of being a successful communication organization. And then community. One thing we've seen lately with the advent of social media and other types of technology is people really have the opportunity to communicate with each other and bring each other into the process. And do effective organizations use those processes to help people, again, navigate change in the organization? Our study is showing that yes, they do. So we're very excited about what we're seeing in the study at this point.
So that's terrific. You're able to tie the ROI back to these communication. I wonder if we can drill it down a little bit here. And the first one you said is clarity. Can you just give an example of a good, clear communication that a company does, or maybe conversely something that a company does that's not clear and the negative effects that could have?
Well, I think one of the things that organizations can be very clear about is their value proposition to employees. And what we find is that in most organizations, whether or not they communicate a value proposition, employees carry a value proposition in their minds. They come to work for a reason, and they've in their minds developed the deal that they're getting for what they're bringing to the table for the organization. What we find is that organizations that spend more time actually understanding what their value proposition is and articulating it to employees tend to also be more successful financially. So that's one piece that we found in terms of clarity in organizations, and a thing that we found over and over again in the study.
Let's talk then about the second one, which is confidence. Mm-hmm. How can an organization communicate with confidence?
What we see as being an effective communication or an effective way to manage change in an organization is involving the key stakeholders who need to be part of that communication and really helping them be able to guide the organization through change. And one key stakeholder we see throughout organizations is the manager. So organizations that actually spend time preparing managers to help their people get through change, again, show up as being more effective from a communication and change management perspective. Whether it means having formal training, having tools and resources for managers to really be able to understand the change and then interpret it for their people. There are a lot of different ways of going about it, but it really is a way to make the organization feel more confident about the change that it's going through.
And then the third C you mentioned was this idea of community, and you mentioned social media. I know a lot of organizations are grappling with social media. How do we do it? How do we stay in? How do we get out? That kind of thing. So how are companies using social media, or maybe this idea of community, to effectively communicate?
Well, I think one of the things that we've seen is that community, the definition of community, has changed quite a bit. In the past, your community may have been the people that sit next to you, in the office or the cube next door, or people that are in the same building with you, or people that may be doing the same job. Now what we're seeing is that organizations can really connect, even globally, and develop communities across borders. And that's pretty exciting when you can kind of harness the energy of the workforce to be able to talk to each other, to innovate together, to come up with ideas together, and really make those connecting points. We're seeing a lot of organizations go down that path. We're seeing places where they may build communities across a certain career path area. We're seeing organizations using the power of the crowd or the wisdom of the crowd to come up with ideas or think of new ways to do things. We're just seeing the use of social media really increase quite a bit. At the same time, I think there's also that personal connection and relationship that needs to be there as well. But with social media, you're able to sort of increase that quite a bit.
Well, I want to thank Kathy Kibbe from Towers Watson for coming in today for World at Work and WorkSpan TV. I'm Ryan Johnson.